TrekWars, Duels Across the Stars. Episode 2, Top 5 Scenes in a Bar or Restaurant, The Search for Death Sticks.
The eternal conflict between two of the galaxy's bitter enemies continues. There is unrest in the Mos Eisley Cantina. Several thousand cantinas have declared their intentions to install dartboards. This bar association, under the leadership of the mysterious Benkernow, has made it difficult for the limited number of cantinas to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Senator Olympus, the former praetor of Romulus, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issue of ranking a list of the top 5 scenes in a bar or restaurant to assist the overwhelmed fans of both the Star Wars and Star Trek franchises to decide which is best.
Welcome to Duels Across the Stars. We're recording this to YouTube and your podcast site of choice. We're ranking the top 5 scenes in a bar or restaurant from the Star Trek or Star Wars franchises. This is only going to be a bit of fun. We're using the rankings as an excuse just to talk about both franchises. And for this, I'm Benkernow, and I've got with me
Olympus, good to be here again. This is episode 2. Anyone who has not seen episode 1 yet, at the end of this episode, if you've enjoyed it, please go back and give it a watch.
Definitely. So first thing we do before we get into the rankings, we decide our personal rules about how we pick our rankings. Do we have any stipulations that we impose on ourselves? Olympus, do you have any stipulations
Yes, I did do a couple of very, 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 very vague ones for this episode. So, top 5 scenes in a bar or restaurant. I have decided only to do scenes that involve bars or restaurants that serve liquids, i.e. make sure they're 100% bars. Also I am keeping this strictly to Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm not going outside of those two areas. How about you?
Oh, cool. So my original rules were the scene had to have some meaning to the entire episode or film. I think I've managed to keep to that. Was possibly one exception, but I've managed to keep to that. And I'm literally managed to keep it to stuff within the TV shows and films. And third point was I was not going to make it like buffets you have in Star Trek occasionally, or scenes at home. Wouldn't include Captain Picard's vineyard or anything like that. So it had to be.
Oh, you mean we can't? We can't use Captain Picard's famous bar in his chateau. Damn.
So I'm not anyway. So, but it had to be somewhere that sell food or again a liquid of some kind. That was my boundaries for it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Did you want to go first, or did you want me to go first?
You know what, mate? You crack on. Give us your very first pick of the night.
Thank you. I will go there. My first pick is from Star Wars Episode 2. It is a scene that actually starts off outside the bar and then involves flying around Coruscant. Searching for, I think, basically a bounty hunter that's out to kill Princess. I've had a mind blank there. Not Princess Amidala.
Former Queen of Naboo, Senator Amidala.
Former Nemo. I've got Princess Leia in my head. I apologize. Yeah, and it's like they're chasing afterwards with Obi-Wan Kenobi hanging onto a probe, and
It's a brilliant scene, actually.
Anakin. Yeah, yeah. Anakin trying to find his right vehicle to fly in. But the part I was going to talk about on here was when they actually have crash landed onto presumably the lower parts of the Coruscant, and the bounty hunter runs into this nightclub, which has a bar, and it's Obi-Wan is telling, or basically trying to rein in Anakin just to not go off too fast and run in. There's once he's told him off for him losing his lightsaber, but for the umpteenth time, going in there just show him the go. She's gone in there to hide. We don't have to keep chasing. We can take our time, have a think about it. Which once they all get in there, is what Obi-Wan does. He asks his Padawan to go and have a look for her. He obviously has something in mind when he's going there, because when Anakin asks, where are you going? It's like, get a drink.
Yeah, for a drink.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. What else are you going to a bar for? And it's just like, either through a combination of he knew with Anakin walking around that may slightly spook her, or he knew she was going to appear at some point, and it's like a case of he sensed it and managed to retain her and restrain her, and eventually get a little bit of information to get to the next scene.
Do I remember right that he disarms her by basically removing one of her arms, or is it a hand? Yeah. It's something like that, isn't it?
I think it's a hand or arm, and it appears like that. Yeah, and it definitely gives me a sense of vibe that this scene had somebody was thinking of a New Hope scene from also the Cantina, that they were obviously thinking they want similarities to each one, I presume.
That would make sense. Almost like not flashback, but flash forward. I'm thinking that there's definitely an artistic element to that. I can't think of the word off the top of my head.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts?
It's an absolutely cracking scene. I do not blame you for picking that at all. Probably one of the better scenes out of Attack of the Clones. You get to see a little bit more of, let's call it, real life on Coruscant, away from the glamour and the glitz and the sparkliness of the Senate and the Jedi Temple. So I quite enjoyed those elements of it, but really seeing where Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship had gone from the end of episode 1 to the start of episode 2. You see a lot of that, and a little bit of their feistiness between them. You can tell they're quite close, but equally they still disagree with each other quite a bit. And that bar scene really brings a lot of that stuff to life. So no, that was a great pick, mate.
Yeah. And there is one thing I forgot to mention there, which I suddenly remembered. Do you remember the quote from that scene?
The quote from that scene.
Search the death sticks.
Oh yes, you want to buy some death sticks? You don't want to buy. You don't want to sell me death sticks. I don't want to sell you death sticks. You want to go home and rethink your life. I want to go home and rethink my life. I love that. That is great. Well remembered.
I half of me had to have it just because for that line or those lines there. Yeah. Shall we go to your number 5 pick?
Absolutely. So my picks were in no particular order. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. And actually, you referenced that in the scene you just went through in episode 2 very much mirrors in some ways a scene in a bar in Mos Eisley from episode 4 A New Hope, which is my first choice.
Ooh,
We couldn't
yeah.
have done this if we tried. Trust me, if you're watching or listening, we did not plan this. We do not tell each other our picks ahead of actually recording this, so it's all very fresh. Because just that's 2 episodes in a row now where we've done something that's very similar. So yeah, I've picked A New Hope. It's a Mos Eisley cantina. Technically, I've kind of picked 2 scenes here, but they could really sort of blend in together. So the first bit I'm going to talk about is when Obi-Wan and Luke walk into the cantina, and I think the very first thing they get is a bartender going, "Hey, you, no droids," and per 3PO and R2 are forced to stay outside and try and keep discreet while you've got stormtroopers running around. Luke, very much out of his comfort zone, hasn't really been in those types of situations before, which gives me the impression he's stayed away from the main Mos Eisley bar scene up until that point. He gets picked on pretty quickly by a couple of ragtag aliens, and Obi-Wan steps in and very quickly disarms one of them with his lightsaber, which is, up until that point, you sort of see this Ben Kenobi type guy's a bit of an old space wizard kind of character in that movie. It's not until that point that you go, oh wow, he actually means a little bit of business here. He's more than just talk, which is lovely to see. And when you look at that in comparison with the prequels, you get that very nice connection between the two, and you go, that's the Obi-Wan I remember. So you can see he's still in there. So love that piece, a little bit comedic, whilst also developing the characters. The other element I want to talk about, again, within that same cantina, although I believe it is a slightly different scene, so I'm maybe I've halfway cheated here, sorry, is the infamous scene between Han Solo and Greedo. Yes, who shot first? Actually, anyone who has any thoughts behind who shot first, please add those into the comments on YouTube. Add them into the feedback on Spotify as well. So who did shoot first? I honestly don't know. I'm going to say Han, but I'm biased. So I just loved the sort of gung-ho gangster feel you got from that, a little bit more Western, and it really helps introduce who Han Solo is for the rest of that movie in a nutshell. That's my first pick. How about your, in fact, before we go on to your second one, what are your thoughts behind that scene stroke 2 scenes that I've just gone through?
For eagerness, I'm going to actually move one of my picks forward back a little bit, put it in 4, so I could actually comment on this. I did originally have this at my 1 position, but for the sake of mentioning here, I had this scenes as well, and I was debating in my head whether this broke my rule, because there was like 2 bits where it's like intersliced them.
Yeah.
And I thought it brings up the characters and the scene at the temple for the film, which included like what it was like on Tatooine, what the characters were like, introduce you to Chewbacca and Han for the first time.
Yep.
Yeah, great groups to sing, and the cantina music as well.
Of course.
Which is, it starts off with, which is lovely. You've got the droids again. It's like that sums up what some people think of droids.
On that note, for a second as well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it totally skipped my mind for a second. That, again, when you were watching these movies for the first time, years before the prequels came out, you probably wouldn't have thought two times about it. Looking back at that now, understanding the prequels, that hatred is formed from the Clone Wars. And the wars between, obviously, the Republic and the Separatists, because the Separatists used droids. You couldn't trust droids. So there's still this bias all these years after the Clone Wars towards droids.
Ooh, I never thought about that, to be honest, but I like it. That's gonna give me a different thought on this now, and it's like, yeah, I like it. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I'd need to add to that. I've got no opinion on who shoots first, but that's
It was so low. It was so low. Either that or Greedo's a terrible shot.
yeah, yeah. And it sets the story up for what they're doing. They're going to go to Odoron to actually get money off some family members members they know, as in Princess Leia, and yeah, it sets it up and ends up becoming this great friendship and set several trilogies later.
Absolutely. So I guess on that note, unless you've got anything else to add, what's your next pick?
Oh, that was gonna. I end up putting that in my next pick. So,
Oh,
yeah, that was fun. I know this is slightly cheating, but I think we're over to you for number 4 because I know that was one of my picks as well.
lovely jubbly. Cool. In that case, I'm going to move away from Star Wars now. We're going to talk Star Trek. We're going to talk my one of my most favourite Star Trek movies of all time, which is First Contact, and a scene that I mentioned in episode 1 of our podcast show, which is the scene in the bar on Earth, where in Bozeman, Montana, where Riker walks into a bar, kind of like a joke, and witnesses Diana Troy totally drunk, which is a scene in itself. So to set the scene for anyone who hasn't seen Star Trek First Contact first, I guess, in very short summary, the Borg, which is this alien race, has travelled back in time to try and stop Earth from ever making first contact with an alien species and destroying the Federation as we know it. Picard and crew go back in time, try to fix it. So Riker walks into the spa. Troy is drunk. She can't hear anything because a jukebox is playing at the top of its lungs. He's yelling, "Diana, Diana," and ends up pulling the plug on the jukebox, which results in a bottle of something being, lobbed at him from the other end of the bar. Zefram Cochrane, the famous individual who created warp drive, or invented warp drive, also drunk out of his face. One of the quotes, I think Diana, I'm going to paraphrase this, it took 3 shots of something called tequila just to figure out that he's the person we're looking for. To which Riker goes, "You're drunk." "I am not." "Yes, you are." I could quote this scene. The thing I love about this scene is it really brings to life the relationship that Riker and Troy have outside of their professional world. Those of you who've watched TNG know that they had a relationship before the Next Generation started. So from the word go, it was always a little bit more complicated, and that love interest is kind of kindled and sort of embered and been there from the word go onwards. And they've kind of been on and off, on and off. You don't really see that come to life in First Contact, but you do get a feeling of some of those little sparks there. But seeing them so happy and so funny with each other, having a real proper human scene in the middle of a chaotic situation, was phenomenal acting, phenomenal directing, and hats off to Marina Sirtis, who plays a drunk Betazoid like an absolute pro.
Oh no, I love that scene as well. It's like, as much as I want to pick holes in it, it still makes me laugh every time, and it's just like yeah, I love it. I think it's sets up Cochrane very well. I think it sets up all the characters well.
It does, and I mean, Cochrane, up until that point, we were expecting Cochrane to be this larger-than-life pinnacle man who's just out to do the absolute best of the best and be this shining beacon of light to take Earth out of World War III to a better future. And he's it turns out he's just a guy who enjoys alcohol and wants to make loads of money and go to an island filled with naked women and enjoy the rest of his days retired there. And again, I'm paraphrasing him later in the movie. But it shows his character development. So it starts him off there, and then you see him evolve over the rest of the movie to realise just what it is that he's started and begun, and his place in that moving forwards, and how that changes him.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Honest, I don't have much add to that. Yeah, I think that was
Lovely,
yeah,
lovely.
that was good.
In that case,
Yeah.
mate, over to your next choice.
I have to go back in order now to what was going to be my number 4, but now my number 3 is a scene from Star Trek Voyager. It's a holodeck episode.
We love our holodeck
It's
episodes.
oh, definitely. If I'm going to quote a line to here, a sentence, and I apologise for my French. Welcome to the Coeur d'Ileon. I am Katrine. The first round is on me, with one condition. We leave the war behind us. So...
I can't tell you the name of the episode, but I can picture her. She's French, isn't she?
yeah.
They've
This is
recreated
from
French. On you go. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, I'm glad you picked up on it. It's from the 2 part of the Killing Game. It's not quite the first scene, but it's set-up scene after the ad break. A species that the crew of Voyager had met before, the Hirogen, have taken over Voyager. We don't know how, but they did, and they had put the crew to combat scenes on the holodeck and put a device in them that makes them think that they're holodeck characters. And you have a scene from France of a load of resistance people, and later a load of a couple of American soldiers. But for this scene, it is Catherine or Catherine Janeway as Katerina, 7 as 9 as Mademoiselle Deneuve. I cannot remember who. No, I've just had a mind blank now. Who the other characters play, but you have 7 and 9 singing as a munitions expert.
Forgot about that. Oh my word!
with a temper. Playing, yeah. You got I've suddenly had a mind blank now. Yeah, you've got them playing this cross between Casablanca and a lower low, on a World War II setting, and you have the Erosion come in who are playing the Nazis. You're setting up that one's a town commandant. You set up a whole with those 2 episodes as well as the characters, that it's like that you have 2 about keeping an eye on everybody. You and who's suspicious about 7 and 9. 7 and 9, who is that rebellious character in the as 7 and 9 in the show, and as Mademoiselle Deneuve, who's a bit hot-headed, and you have Katerina or Catherine Janeway, who's the leader who's looking after everything. It's one of those ones I do like it when Star Trek do other things and get to play other characters in it, even if it's versions on themselves. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that? Because I'm
Probably mostly mirroring what you've said, but one of the biggest things I love about those types of episodes is seeing the actors being able to play different characters, or almost playing their characters playing different characters. It just shows you the breadth of skill in acting that these actors really have. And it's a lot of fun as well. It changes up the dynamic of the show quite a bit and throws something new and fresh in there. And Voyager's not alone in doing that. We know there's a lot of other episodes that do that, but that was a pinnacle one that I'll always remember. One of my favourites from Voyager, because it was so fresh and different.
Yeah, and this is as an episode as a whole, but it gives a thing of a society trying to change, as in the Rojan Shards are going through a hunter species who are there to go out and hunt and get their prey, but basically they're dying off. If they keep doing the same old thing, their species is going to go. And you've got people who don't want to change, saying this is what we are. We've got to stay that way, whatever. And then there's others who want to change and
evolve with the times.
Not necessarily that sums it up. Evolves with the times, and rather than continuously beating your head against the wall, even if you like it. Bad analogy there, but hey ho. No,
not at all. Not at all. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. If we're good, I'll move on to my next one. This one is this one's Star Trek again. We're gonna go animated this time with Lower Decks. And we're gonna go straight to episode 1. So we're just being introduced to these characters on the Cerritos, which is a California class starship that no one has ever heard of before, because it is basically the runabout type ships that do all of the jobs that the rest of the fleet don't want to do. For anyone who hasn't watched Lower Decks before, think it's almost like a spoof of Star Trek, but it's not. It actually encompasses everything Star Trek and more. It's probably one of the most Star Trek centric Star Trek shows that are out there. It's just there's a lot of really good humor to it, and a lot of focus on humor compared to the other shows. So definitely give it a watch. Episode 1 is it does its job to bring everything together, introduce you to all the characters, and fairly early on you've got our ensign engineer Rutherford, who is on a date with a Trill not security officer. She does wear yellow, but I don't think she's in security. I can't remember her name, bless, but you do see her recurring throughout the show. They go on a first date. They're in the 10 forward version of Cerritos, having a drink, having a chat, getting to know each other, when an alien rage virus that got aboard at the start of the episode, when certain Commander Ransom, who's a first officer, decided not to go and get checked after he got nipped on the neck by an insect, decides to sprout up out of the blue and start turning everyone into zombies, and they are left holding hands, still continuing their date behind an overturned table, whilst the rest of the bar is up in arms, firing phasers and running away from zombies. It sounds ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but it works. It's just such a nice, different pace to Star Trek. It shows Rutherford and introduces him and his character in a very nice way, and it introduces the feel and the pace of Lower Decks and how it's going to continue.
To be honest, I had not thought about this episode, and I had completely forgot about it up until you were doing it. Is the by the way, is the lady Ensign Barnes?
Yes, thank you. It's Ensign Barnes.
Yeah. I won't tell you the secret way I found that out, but no.
You have your ways.
No. I do remember that scene very, very well. Now you mention it. I can't put the whole episode together now in my head, but it's... but I do remember enjoying that scene, just like the chaos and I didn't think I would like Lower Decks off when it was going to be a chore going through them, but I've absolutely loved watching them, and yeah, I'm glad they brought it out.
Likewise. I wasn't too sure when I saw them bringing it out and I saw the marketing for it. I thought this is a very different Trek. They're going a different way. Is this going to work? It works. It's some of the best Star Trek I've watched in a long time.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely worth a go when I've watched the latest episode. And yeah, definitely cool.
I think to encapsulate Lower Decks, again, paraphrasing or quoting Mariner, who's one of the main characters, we're the cool, scrappy underdogs of the ship. That's Lower Decks.
Yeah, and it is. But actually, I'll tell you this later at the end once we get to the thing. Remind me about Lower Decks.
No problem at all.
Unless you've got any more to say, I think I might jump onto my number 2 pick.
Please go for it. I'm eagerly anticipating.
I am Guinan. I tend bars and I listen.
Ooh.
It's a very short scene, probably about 3.5 minutes long. It's from the Next Generation, so again, those who are not in the thing, that's the bar section on the front of the Enterprise, and it's run by Whoopi Goldberg's character Guinan. Great character and
one of my favourites of TNG.
good actress.
Guinan.
Yeah. And the scene and questions from Ensign Rowe. So, Rowe Laren, a Bajoran who's had a troubled past, has come onto the ship. She is not well liked because she somehow, we don't find out exactly why, but she somehow disobeyed orders and a load of other crewmen got died and nobody wants to serve with her. She didn't want to be here. She didn't want to make friends. She comes into the tent forward as a drink. She's sitting alone. Start with two of the other crewmen, so like Beverly Crusher and Deanna Troy, come up and say, obviously trying to make friends, and it's like, basically, you want company? It's like, no, and they walk straight off, and they look like they actually leave the bar as well. But Einan is talking to Geordie at the bar, and he's telling them about how bad this Rolarian is, and Einan basically says, "That's somebody I want to know. Let's go over it." And basically says the same question: is like, "Am I disturbing you?" Yes. Good. And she sits down next to. Yeah. It's just like, you look like somebody who wants to be disturbed. It's like, and despite Ro not wanting to, saying she not wants company, she seems to be end up making good friends with Guinan. It's basically it's like Guinan saying this: you're not a typical Starfleet officer. You shouldn't put this pressure on you. Basically, in subtext, and Rolaren is saying that basically you're not a bartender that I've met before. It's a great dynamic, and it sets Rolaren up for the rest of the season, or not just rest of the season, the rest of the series. Is a person with a travel past. She is a bit gun-ho on occasionally, but in a good way. She may not do stuff by the books, but she is not as bad as people make out she is. And yeah, sets up the scene or series and her character very well.
Agreed, absolutely. If I can jump in for a sec, like
go ahead.
Ro becomes such an integral part as a recurring partner for the rest of that season into the following one or two. I can't quite remember how many seasons are left by that point, but she's a character that you remember. Having watched The Next Generation through, even just once, she resonates because of her past, because of her development, because of how it all ends, which I will not mention. No spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it, but That scene you're going through there is absolutely pivotal in my mind for introducing Ro and her development. The realization that, you know what, no matter what, you're going to settle in here. You're going to make friends. The crew's going to accept you. It's just going to take a bit of time. Because if I remember right, Picard doesn't even want her there to begin with. And that's saying something. Picard's a very open, accepting person. And for him to not want her there from the word go, right away, it's like, oh, right, something's not going well here. But yeah, that scene, to go back to it, was it was pinnacle Ro Laren at the start. It really kicks off her development from a character perspective. But Guinan, just lovely Guinan, was perfect as always. Whoopi Goldberg, that was one of my favourite characters in The Next Generation.
Yeah, it's not quite the next scene, but not far afterwards, Guinan's like says, "You come to me, I'll bring you to." Brings her to Captain Picard and says, "This is my friend. She's needs something to tell." And it's like, basically, Picard says, "Guinan doesn't make friends easily. If a friend of Guinan, I will hear you out."
Yep.
Which is another relationship in itself, but it's like shows you that Picard and Guinan's relationship, and it was just like.
Agreed. And again, that's really important, isn't it? Understanding the relationship that Picard and Guinan have. And that further encapsulates it. Guinan says something, Picard accepts it. Simple as.
Yeah. Just for reference, Ro Laren appeared in 8 TNG episodes.
Was that all? I thought it was more than that. Jeez, oh.
It's one of those characters that you think has appeared in a lot more, but actually makes such a big influence in the franchise that it's just like...
She made such a big impact, they brought her back for Picard Season 3.
Yeah.
I mean, out of just 8 episodes, of how many episodes were in The Next Generation? Well over 100. I mean, what,
170-ish, usually around... Yeah, so, 7 seasons of 20-plus episodes.
I mean, geez. 8 out of all of that, and that's the impact. That tells you everything.
Yeah. Great character.
So glad you picked that scene.
Yeah. One of the first that came to mind. In that case, I think we should head to you, because I don't have huge much to say to that, because, that we've summed it up.
Brilliant. So, my second last one to talk about, Star Trek Lower Decks again. It's the same bar on the Cerritos. It's the same episode. But it's right at the end of that episode. And again, this resonates for me from the word go. They've got through the rage virus situation. They have discovered the slime that Boimler gets covered in. Again, not too many spoilers for you guys. It's hilarious how that happens. How that cures everyone. It's all done and dusted. And you've got everyone packed into that bar celebrating the fact that the Cerritos survived and the rage virus is over and we're all happy. And you just see the friendships forming between our 4 key lower deck ensigns, which is Tendi, Rutherford, Mariner and Boimler. You see them really coming together, becoming good friends. In particular, the relationship between Mariner and Boimler cementing very, very nicely in a true lower deck style, with Mariner absolutely ripping the Mick out of Boimler. Announces herself as his mentor because she's been on all these other ships and she's been promoted and demoted and she's got all this experience. You will be also, what was it? I will be your Tadich, or he will be my Tadich. And starts going through, oh, have you ever heard of Spock? Dude came back from the dead. Talks about this whole little sequence at the end, which is very Mariner. It's just beautifully pulled together and done. And you see the captain, Carol Freeman, in the background, I think with a couple of the other senior officers sort of looking on with a mixed expression and emotion of kind of, oh, that's nice, again together, and also, oh, what is flipping Mariner up to, causing all this fuss and chaos. I mean, can't be bothered with it. Of course, not knowing at the time the relationship between the captain and Mariner and what that actually is, which when you get to the end of season 1 makes so much more sense. In fact, that's a lie. Sorry, you know their relationship by the end of episode 1.
Ooh.
But the rest of the crew doesn't. Almost got confused there. It's just a very fun ending to a very interesting episode, and it just helps round off that episode and set up the season 1 very, very nicely. And of course, they're drinking God knows what while they're doing it.
If it's blue, it's probably Romulan ale. If it's red, it's probably blood wine.
Yeah, I think there was both on that scene somewhere. Mariner's got some amount of contraband.
Yeah, probably. But not just this episode, but the ones where they always at the end, like remaking, or not remaking friends necessarily, but it's like making friends, like remembering her true friends, and they can bounce off each other and talk. It's like always nice. All I want to say is lower decks, lower decks,
lower decks. Exactly.
Yeah. No, I don't have much more to add to that, but yeah, no. Great pick, I like it.
Love it, brilliant. I mean, there were so many other bar scenes from Lower Decks. There's quite a few of them across the seasons that I could have picked. It was very difficult not to pick loads of them, but those two that I've talked about tonight are probably my favourites because of the way that they set everything up. So yes, without any further ado, on to your next one.
Ooh. This one is probably the only one that doesn't really set up a plot for any of the episodes. This is just part of a scene of actually 2 episodes. When I do this, I just realised I had notes for this to be able to quote it, but I've somehow not got them with me. But this is on K7. This is a good old-fashioned barroom brawl. To set the scene, you have, back on the original series, the Enterprise is going to help at a station called K7, and bitter enemies have been allowed to come down to the station to enjoy the establishments, and you end up with 2 groups of people, so a group Klingons and a group of humans or Starfleet officers in the are together, and this Klingon ends up starting to antagonize the Federation officers, including Scotty and Chekhov. And they keep trying to restrain themselves, and Scotty's trying to stop Chekhov from losing the plot.
Yeah.
And then you get to a lot or 2 lines where it's like, which ends up Klingon saying the Enterprise should be towed away as scrap. Scotty, being the chief engineer, it's not like that, and basically, which is the Klingon unfortunately doesn't give him a Glasgow kiss, but that's and ends up the Klingon flying across the table, and it's like you've got this scene of everybody throwing each other around, pouncing them, and there's this guy in there. Can never say his first name properly, but Thingy Jones, like a trader who is, you can see, picking up the drinks from the bar, suddenly go, let's have a drink, pick up another one, and then just slowly makes his way around that he's fighting people, trying to hold his 2 drinks.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah. And the thing is with this, they brought it back for Deep Space Nine, where they ended up traveling in time, and they were trying to find this Klingon, and they were basically sitting in this bar watching it, trying to watch out for what's going on, and you have Worf, Odo, O'Brien, and Ashir in that bar watching this go off, and they know it's going to kick off. Luckily, Odo and Worf managed to get out, but O'Brien, and Bashir end up in this ballroom brawl as well, changing time very slightly, and end up getting tailed off by Perk at the end, and it's just like. I don't know which scene I prefer better, but I just like both of the scenes.
Again, it's such a good choice, and in a way, second episode in a row, you've picked something that I haven't seen before, technically this time, because I have seen that episode from DS9, and I've watched it, and I thought that was hilarious, especially the trading with all the drinks moving around. It was just such a comedic little touch to it that made you laugh out loud every time you watch it. But I've never seen the TOS episode. So you've done it again. We've got at least one today that you've gone through, which I haven't properly seen before. So I'm going to have to make sure to get on that and watch it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, and yeah, no, it is more than enjoyable. Well worth the watch, even if you think TOS is a bit old-fashioned. Watch it through the Deep Space Nine point of view.
Yeah.
Brilliant episodes.
Well, that's one of my favourite DS9 episodes. And this comes from a guy who hasn't seen much of the original series, but that's one of my favourites from DS9. It's just done so brilliantly.
Yeah, and I think great title for the fingers. Trials and Tribulations.
Yep.
Brilliant title. So, to be honest, I'm glad that ended up at my number one pick in the end. But what is your number one?
So, and again, I did mine in no particular order because I was struggling too much to order them, to be honest. But this is definitely one of, if not the top. It is from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I guess it both forms, in a way, a memory and a reliving of the event. Picard is a cadet at Starfleet. You know which one I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
And he manages to get himself into quite an ugly fight with some Nausicans, which results in him being stabbed through the heart. And this is what ends up with Picard having I can't remember the material now, which is terrible, but essentially a metal heart. Now this is one of those phenomenal TNG episodes that really makes you think about life and how you develop and learn from your experiences and evolve to become better than what you were. And Q is very much at the forefront of helping Picard realize and see that ahead of an operation that he is needing to get in the present day. That he's obviously he's debating with. So you see obviously elements within that bar scene. At the start, Q's standing there talking to Picard about it, asking him about what's going on and sort of jibing him and teasing him a bit about it. As always, with an ulterior motive behind Q, who was played by the absolutely phenomenal John Delancey. And for anyone, again, who hasn't seen The Next Generation, Q's introduced from the very first two-parter episode in Season 1, Episode 1/2, Encounter at Farpoint. He is an omniscient being of unlimited power, who takes a very keen interest in humanity, and in particular Picard and the crew of the Enterprise D. So you see a relationship over these episodes that Q jumps into, several across The Next Generation. You see their relationship develop and grow into something very unique and very interesting. So yeah, you see that side of it at the start of the episode. And then Q sends him almost back through time, and the rest of the episode is spent with Picard essentially reliving the lead up to that event in the bar. And you see him at the start trying to fight it and trying to change things and make things happen a different way. And ultimately, in the end, he realizes that it's happened for a reason. It's made him the man he is today. He's got to let things happen the way they did. And he accepts that. So it's a full sort of round storytelling. And the Nausicaans were brilliant. The makeup was great. They're proper menacing.
Yeah,
and the thing that always gets me is that laugh Picard makes after he's stabbed before he collapses. Because they make a point at the start of the episode as well. It's like, I think Q mentions, it's like, you laughed. But yeah, he has this little laugh as he realizes that he's dying. Very, very powerful episode. Very powerful messages. I mean, it's one of the stronger ones for the next generation for me on that front. And yeah, that bar scene, I'll never forget it.
Oh yeah, no, brilliant. It does, remind you. It's a good story about you are a sum of your parts. We've all probably. I've got a list a mile long of things that I wish I had done differently in my life or hadn't done, and it's like, if it wasn't for those things though, I probably wouldn't be me right now. It's great pick, great episode, I think.
Thank you.
Glad that. So I think that rounds up with 2 punch-up barroom brawls.
It does.
Finishing off the picks. So.
And again, it's like we planned it, and honestly, for everyone watching, we purposefully don't tell each other what we're picking ahead of these recordings, so that we get sort of the full impact ourselves as we're talking about them. So these coincidences are honestly exactly that, which is phenomenal. As I said, 2 episodes in a row now this has happened. It's great fun.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, I thought at least one of us would have a restaurant somewhere in the
neither of us did. Although technically, you could argue 10 forward, they serve food. That could be a restaurant, which means the Cerritos bar could also be the same. But it's not really a restaurant, is it? You know, they don't need to pay for their food.
Were there any picks that were close for you from being picked that you had so close to picking?
There were quite a few. At one point, I was thinking of a scene at Cisco's on Earth during DS9, and then I realised that that's not a bar, but it is a restaurant. It would have counted. There was a scene there. There were a couple of them when Cisco's. I remember him playing a piano. He's about to uncover and realise what's going on with his mother, and and how that all connects to the wormhole back at DS9. And there's some powerful family moments across a couple of those scenes as well, which again really gels the character development for Cisco and his son Ben. Not Ben, his son Jake. Jake, sorry. Yeah. There were there were a couple of others as well. Most of them are Star Trek, to be fair. Actually, there weren't many Star Wars. I did have the episode 2 one that you obviously had on your list in my contenders.
I thought you would have.
I don't know
you
why.
were going to pick that one.
Yeah, I thought I was going to pick it and I didn't. There's a couple of scenes from The Mandalorian in a bar. Again, almost picked those, didn't.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of sort of Star Wars related ones. And another Star Wars related one was in Attack of the Clones as well, when Obi-Wan goes to visit his friend who runs a restaurant to find out what that Kaminoan dart was and where that originates.
Yeah.
How about you?
And I can remember robots. I do remember that scene about having the robots playing American football in the background for TV, which actually appears in the episode 2's bar scene. But there's 2 that I got in mind. One is when Scotty is in 10 forward, and the Next Generation crew have found him, and he ends up finding this green drink Data gets out of the bar from Guinan and Stash to give him because he doesn't like Simfa Ho.
I totally forgot about that. Oh my god, yes, that's a brilliant scene.
Like I forgot the Cisco ones, and it's like I really wish I did those ones. Some of those now. And there was also what I call the soup episode, which is uh, Data and Picard dressing up as Romulans, going to Romulus to try to find Spock,
Yes, why
and
didn't
they
I
end
think
up
of
in a
that?
restaurant eating soup, and it's like eating soup, and it's trying to find Spock, and it some of me just went, there wasn't enough there just to go for me to put it on my list too, but
I get what you mean, but again, oh my god, like I can't believe I forgot about those. And then I've just remembered one of the other ones that was on my list, or several. Because you had the whole situation with Neelix on Voyager, becoming the chef and taking over the captain's flipping galley and turning it into a kitchen. And then you've got, or the almost podcasty type things that Neelix did for the ship as well. And the interviews off of that he did from his kitchen. The one from Voyager that always stands out for me is actually episode 1 again, of season 1, when Paris walks in. You get you see some of the staff, including Kim, sitting talking at a bar, and they're all giving him shady looks. He walks over to the replicator and he asks it for tomato soup, and it says something like, there are 15 different varieties of tomato soup, which would you like? And he's like, plain, hot, plain tomato soup. And of course, part of me is going, tomato. For anyone who's not UK based, we call it tomato soup, not tomato soup. I know tomato, one and the same thing. But part of me is going, tomato soup. And the other part of me is going, oh my god, this is brilliant.
It does remind me of a scene even before that with Harry, Kim and Paris in Corks on Deep Space Nine before they depart. And Corks trying to sell Kim some stones from common stones just to go, something to send to your parents.
Paris comes to his rescue on that one, if I remember right. I totally forgot about that too. That just shows you there are so many.
Yeah. And both Corks and Morn's only appearances in Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Morn either.
How many bar scenes with Morn? Oh, guys, anyone who has not watched DS9, get on and watch it. It's a very different Star Trek show again. Probably a lot more political, a lot more focused on character development, and utterly phenomenal in so many different ways that other Star Trek shows aren't. But Morn is a classic character in that show. You're gonna love him. Give it a watch.
Anyway, quick results are Star Trek 7, Star Wars 3. I did not expect that. Sure, when I came up with this idea of cantinas and such like, and that sums up what I was thinking. So, any other business?
I guess not really for this episode. Just a big thank you for anyone taking the time to watch us on YouTube or listen to us through the podcast platforms. It's currently Spotify at the moment, but we're hoping to get that opened up to the other platforms very shortly. So yes, please follow us, like us, subscribe to us, give us star ratings and feedback across the different platforms, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, or somewhere else that you're watching this from. I will be streaming these pre-recorded as well at particular points, so jump on to my streaming channel on Twitch, Olympus 0511, and give us a watch there when that's happening too. But yeah, just thank you all from me for jumping in, listening, watching, taking part in terms of comments, etc. And yeah, I guess as well, Ben, anyone who can or who wants to share what their top 5 scenes in a bar or restaurant is, please add that to the comments on those platforms, and we'll get into conversations with you guys on those as well.
Yeah, please do so. Olympus is also on Twitter at Olympus0511. Am I correct?
Thank you. Yes, indeed.
And I'm at TrekWars Fantasy. We will have the links in both our later wherever you found this. So YouTube it being the YouTube and podcast it being podcast form. Uh, I will put out in some access to like some discords where we talk about our various stuff. My things tends to be Star Trek role-playing games and Star Wars. Olympus is combination. Oh, you tell you what do you what's on your Discord for?
Mostly sci-fi related things. So Star Trek and Star Wars is absolutely at the top of that list, but also other sci-fi related things. I've been playing quite a bit of Stellaris, so that's actually another point. A lot of my Discord stuff is more around the gaming side of things. So for Star Trek Online, Star Wars is Star Wars: The Old Republic, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Jedi Survivor. Other Star Wars games like that. Other sci-fi games as well, like Stellaris, Star Trek Infinite, which is based off of Stellaris that's just come out. And I do dabble in other games as well. Assassin's Creed is a particular favourite of mine from a franchise point. Really, I'm far too varied for my own good right now. I'm trying to pinpoint myself down. But yeah, anything sci-fi related, you'll be in the right place if you decide to jump in and say hi on my Discord.
Yeah, and unless we got anything else, I suppose may the force be with you.
May the force be with you, Gandalf.
Next time on Trek Wars, Duels Across the Stars, top 5 starships. Please subscribe, follow, and all those cool things so you know when the next episode appears.